a thing I always have in mind is this person in service to the group they're influencing, or is it for their own benefit? Like, for example, there's an ego hit. There's definitely an ego hit in being the center of it. Wow, I made this party bus go, or hey, I made her smile. You know, the ego hit that. So I think it's very easy for that kind of like me putting myself in the center of the service rather than actually it being a gift, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that as facilitators, we are definitely a higher risk for narcissism, for sure. And I think that very few people communicate how it's, if I try to throw a party on a tube, sure, I'm evaluating people's reactions to my experiments, but oftentimes I don't hear much. People are so non-confrontational nowadays that I never really hear about any negative impact I've had on people. But you know what, man? I argue that if you see someone, it's like the grandma. It's like the grandma on the beach who sees a bunch of young people having fun and dancing and cheering, and it's like the you know, the stereotypical grumpy grandma who's like, oh, those young kids shouldn't be so loud and having fun. Like, it's that mindset. Those people who are negatively impacted by public expression of joy are in a toxic mindset, in my opinion.
Jack, let me push back as this. If you get on the train when I'm reading my book and you start singing, I'm going to punch you in the face. Okay, just so you know, I'm some loud motherfucker singing on my train. Okay, like I'm that guy who's just sitting there rolling his eyes, hating you inside. Like, and then, you know, maybe people are a bit more introverted. They just want to chill. They don't necessarily want to be in the party. I don't want my train to be a party all the time, you know? I don't like when the drunk people start singing on the plane on the way to Malaga. I'm just like, I don't really want to be around the drunk singing people. Upgrade me to first class with the boring people, you know?
You're taking it to the extreme. I agree with the music. I agree with the singing, but what I'm more saying is generally, there are some people who see the public expression of joy as a nuisance and as something that is disturbing their peace. But I think of it totally differently in that, oh my gosh, this is contagious. And if I actually open my eyes to it and look into their eyes, look into that person's eyes who's having an amazing time right now. But when alcohol is involved, it's very different. Like, my mindset's a little different.
It's culture. Like, Canadians are not going to be, you know, not going to be a conflict verse. I tell you who's great at being intrusively joyful is Italians. Like, there's so many times Italians have pissed me off with their joyfulness and their singing and their hugging and all the rest of it. And then I've just gone, fuck it, and gone with it and just had a really good time. You know, there's definitely a cultural piece that certain cultures feel more okay with their joy in public. So I'm not sure I want to make it that it's right or wrong in quite that way, but I see what you're doing.
We definitely have the right to quiet peacefulness, and I think that there's certain spaces where that's the code, and I think in those spaces when someone comes in and violates that code, it's very different, right? What are people's expectations? What's the code of ethics of this space? You know, that's when it gets tricky, right? Because I resonate with you. We all fluctuate in terms of our physical energy and what our needs are.
Yeah,
you know, if I slept horribly last night and I just want to read my book and I don't want to socialize and I don't want to be promoting joy in public, then that's perfectly okay. But I will say that one of my ways for changing my state, if I'm in a low physical energy and I'm in a horrible mood, is I talk to a stranger and I try to make their day. I try to benefit them. I try to make them feel amazing because that gives me a rush every single time that I do it.
Yep. Yeah. No, I see where you come from. My wife's super introverted. She'd hate you. She'd hate you so much. But it's yeah.
Tell me more.
So she regards the entire world as her space not to be intruded upon. She likes COVID because people keep away from her. And she liked New Zealand when we went there because people give space. And Australia, people culturally come much more into your face. They're like, "G'day." She liked Japan because people have this respectful distance, which I think both are valid, right? Like, do I want to give this person? Japanese people are great at this culturally, not all, but most, the vast majority. Like, they'll give you this beautiful, respectful distance that is considered a real gift and a compliment. As opposed to, I'm going to try and make your day and cheer you up. But I think there's both, isn't there? Like, both can have a beautiful considerate, both can be in service or both can be taking, right?
I love this because it brings into the conversation, do we get people's consent before we attempt to make their day? And is it acceptable? Is the, I want to say, like, is the context of the situation, are people in this environment, have they implicitly consented to the public expression of joy or something, right? So I really like that. And that's a very sensitive issue that I've reflected on a lot, is when I am throwing these massive parties in public, there are people who have not consented to music, to dance, and is it a form of manipulation to put them into a state where they're enjoying themselves? And all those questions.
You have a right to influence the states of others, even in a direction that might be considered positive. And joy, for example, isn't always where I want to go. If I was just coming back from my dad's funeral, I don't want someone trying to get me into joy. I want to be in my sadness, right? So it's there's not, joy isn't always a good thing. And do I get a choice about that? It's kind of, or, like, what's the general rule? Like, I mean, I gave this person a compliment earlier. I mean, that's street harassment by some laws, right? Yeah. I mean, even though it's well-intended and it was non-sleazy or anything, it was just a compliment. And she didn't agree to it. I pretty much gave it to her before she had a chance to say, actually, don't give me a compliment, fuck you. And I have asked people before, may I give you a compliment? And they just went, no. And I've gone, okay, have a lovely day. Like,
yeah.
But I was like, okay, so what's the line with that?
Yeah, it's generally when I've transgressed, I haven't regretted it. I generally don't really regret it ever, because again, I've analyzed that ratio of risk reward, and the reward is always, it brings people together. It breaks the ice. You can see people's like tension in their muscles just decrease. So, but I think it's just incredibly important when you're doing what I do and trying to get strangers to connect in public spaces, is to always meet people meet the mood of the environment, adapt to the environment, and constantly reevaluate how you're being received. And so I have like 300 different songs and activities that might just begin with snapping to a beat, to a very low energy track. And this is how we begin on the tube. And then gradually we'll elevate the energy until bam, crowd surfing happens. And so I think that part of the way that I navigate the whole conversation around transgressing and upholding consent is by starting in a very, very slow and safe way.
Calibration. I mean, calibration is the key principle of good embodied training. You don't go in hard, you go in soft, and there's a listening I'm hearing as well. So it's like, okay, maybe this isn't the place for it. Maybe this is a whole train full of people who've just come from a funeral and they don't fucking need this. There's a listening. I'm hearing there's a listening there, and I'm hearing there's a calibration there, which I think are the two key things to if it's not explicit verbal consent, we do have to give consent to go along with something. I think no one's so manipulatively, seductively amazing at embodied leadership, that there doesn't have to be at least there's the moment where the Italians are partying and I go, fuck it, and there's a choice to sort of go along with it, as it were. So I think there is a implicit consent in that, isn't there? And if that's not there, then it feels very different.
Yeah. Well, the reaction, the body's reaction is, these people are disrespecting me, and it's less so like the emotional contagion of that positive energy. It's more so what's in our minds is like, I did not give these people consent to do that, and I'm upset about that. So I get that.
You're drinking from a beaker. Is that the scientist? The scientist brand. Check you out. What about the leadership side? Because I saw a good video of you, really nice talk you did. I think some company, some corporation, you were talking about essentially what I would call embodied leadership and this infective mood quality, how we listen to people, how we infect mood, being able to be creative with that, how we build trust. Maybe say some of the things that in the sort of leadership context, because not everyone's interested in singing on a bus or, doing the outrageous things. So how does this translate to people that are just in a more normal kind of world? But what you're talking about are key principles of embodied leadership here.
Yes. The method that we've created is very much based on how to produce psychological safety within groups. So how do we enable people to feel safe to take interpersonal risks? It's about like brain chemistry, like shifting people's brain chemicals, endorphins, oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin. And then, of course, we want to also want to basically communicate a culture to our groups where we have all these principles like learning, engagement, and generosity. So there's a few different principles that we use in our method, and one of which is these cultural principles. Another which is like physical proximity and synchrony. So if we can get everyone in the group close together and doing something in a similar way, the same thing, it will actually lead to social bonding.
I mean, that's what it does, right? Like you think of like dancing tango with someone, you're close and you're synchronizing. That's courtship principles of those two principles, right?
Yeah. And so, some of the other principles we use are, so we have, basically my whole research has focused on what are the human behaviors that lead to social bonding and what has been done in prehistoric civilizations to promote social bonding. And so, sure, there's a lot of inaccessible parts to it, but what makes it more accessible is warming people up, producing psychological safety by promoting principles like the importance of growth and learning and vulnerability, and really role modeling that. We leverage generosity. So we have this principle at Vive, and it's called the community of kindness. And whereas in most entertainment spaces, people compete with one another for reputation and fun, what we try to do at our experiences is create a culture where you gain status by serving others and creating fun for others. And so part of it is just educating people on the values of the community, and then encouraging and role modeling those values during the experience. And so for normal people, I think that there's a few takeaways from these principles. And I mean, for normal people, like pardon me, what I mean by that is like professionals, because we've worked with different companies and whatnot, right? And what we do is, I think like music is just one core tool that everyone can use and which is really accessible for everyone. And it's just using music that everyone can relate to create that sense of unity and shared experience. And something as simple as getting people to clap to a song, or move their bodies in synchrony to a song can really change an entire group dynamic. So was your question was about principles of embodied leadership, is that right?
Yeah, so I mean, they make total sense to me. Proximity, synchronization. I never know what people mean by psychological safety, but certainly sort of modeling respect and consent. You know, I've seen it in a group, for example, when someone decides not to do it and that's respected, the whole group kind of sinks in trust a bit deeper of like, oh, okay, you know, you're allowed to say no, therefore I'm going to say yes. You know, I remember once there was two young girls, the children of my friend, and one of the older sister I'd known for years, I picked her up and I'm throwing her around and she loves it, she's squealing, it's great. And then I said to the younger kid, I said, can I pick you up? And she went, no. I went, oh, okay. And then she went, oh, then yes. Because as soon as she realized she had a choice, she had trust to then play with me, and she'd seen her older sister do it. So that principle of sort of modeling, okay, well, my sister did that and that looked fun. So it was already sort of halfway there. But it was a moment of like, that's what psychological safety means to me, was this idea that she was allowed to say no and that would be respected. And even just in a play context, let alone some of the more, you know, other contexts we have. So that was a moment of insight for me.
Yeah, well, I just think back to a book that I read called Drive, and it describes like the three main motives for thriving in a professional context. And so what you can do as a leader or a manager to create thriving and highly motivated team members, you can cultivate autonomy in those team members. So giving them agency and giving them control over their environment. You can give them mastery. So giving them opportunities to master their craft. And then finally, meaning. So I think autonomy and agency is definitely, and I just think back to some of the research on forced fun as well. And so I study a lot of the like organizational psychology of it all. And the reality is people will not have fun if they have not consented to that fun in a workplace. So if there's any coercive element, people are not in social engagement mode. They're in sympathetic mode. So they're stressed and they don't want to be there and they don't feel safe.
The office forced to attend kind of thing that, you know, it doesn't actually feel good, or the thing your mum makes you go to as a kid that you're supposed to sing along. Oh, you know, it's, you know. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I think that one of the solutions to that is, and this is how I foresee Vive influencing nightlife and entertainment, is incorporating more co-creativity within experiences and giving people opportunities to be a creative agent within the experience. And my core belief is that we have an infinite source of joy and amusement around us at all times. Maybe not during COVID, but because of social distancing, but still and the idea behind that is that every other human in your vicinity is a source of joy and amusement to every other human. And we're so hardwired to access joy. And it's just, for me, like my perspective on human connection is no longer, these are just, these are just people in their lives and I should avoid them and they're strangers. It's more so, gosh, if I connect with one of these people, it's going to change my state and it's going to be such a more positive, meaningful experience than watching TikTok, right? I've never watched TikTok because I'm not 12. But your, just so people didn't know, your website that you mentioned, Vive, that's the name of your company, right? VYVE.life, just to point
That's
people
right.
in a good direction. And I'd be nice website, by the way. Be good to talk about the quarantine thing a little bit as well. Like, you know, your whole thing is human connection and play, and now, you know, everybody's kind of serious, and we're not allowed to touch each other. As I had a good friend from Denmark, and he runs a movement school, and he just said, my business has just been made illegal, was how he very bluntly put it, because his business was connection, and, you know, different ways of acro yoga and different ways to do that. And he was like, shit, what do I do now? And he's managed to move it online. God love him, good bloke. But it was a hell of a thing to realize all of a sudden it was illegal. You know, you're talking about proximity. That's illegal. You know, one of your main tools is out the window.
Yeah.
So how is it hitting you, this whole COVID situation?
Well, I'll first say that I actually read an article by a neuroscientist. He studies the neuroscience of trust. He's called the Oxytocin doctor. You can Google him and find him. And he, in one of his articles, he showed that we can still actually get oxytocin through online interactions and online face-to-face contact. And I didn't really believe in that at first, but now that I've been innovating on my method through Zoom parties and Zoom festival experiences, I totally believe that it's possible to mimic the effects of proximity and touch, but through a screen. So I totally thought my business was going to shut down. And then we said, okay, well, hold on, Club Quarantine, they're throwing online parties. So let's see if we can take some of this human connection online. So we've been doing that for a month and a half and leading parties for like companies as well. And, you know, I think we very much underappreciate our versatility. And again, we have these illusions of what's possible. And until we really put them to the test by attempting to create human connection through Zoom, we're never really going to know. And what we've discovered is that we can actually reach the same emotional intensity of a jam-packed alley with thousands of people, you know, jumping in synchrony. We can actually create that through Zoom. And it's like nuts. I mean,
yeah, it's surprising.
So
it's surprising what we found.
It's brilliant. And I think that, you know, I think that if we can figure out how to create the same health benefits of human connection virtually, we're going to be able to compete better with like Netflix and TikTok and all these very passive, addictive forms of entertainment.
TikTok? Sorry if I was mean to you earlier about this. What is TikTok? I'm sorry if I sound 212. What is it? It's like, I've heard of Snapchat. I know what Instagram is, but what's TikTok? Just give me the brief version.
TikTok, I would say, is an echo chamber of short, addictive videos of people dancing and
it's the fun stuff. It seemed to be. I saw a thing on Facebook, like just sort of fun videos of people dancing and things like that.
Yeah, it's like YouTube, but it's built to keep you watching, repeat it, and it's built to keep you in that like instant gratification mindset because they're funny.
Oh, that's cool. There's a on a skateboard. Oh, there's a guy doing backflips in Burger King. Oh wow, I'm totally never going to go on that. Okay, that sounds like a nightmare.
Oh no, Mark, you got to get on there and you got to slow people down. You are the Messiah, man. You need to get on there for sure.
Slow talk. We can call it. I do the masculine version. It'll be called Tik Tok.
That is TikTok.
It'd just be like boring things for men to look at that aren't exciting. That's my version. Okay, cool. This has been fun, as I expected it would be. And on your website, you do weddings, bar mitzvahs, funerals. You ever done a funeral? Like a wedding?
Yeah. So we've been really thinking about how to incorporate sadness into a party, and we haven't yet experimented with that, but we hope to eventually. I think that what I see is like a party being like a roller coaster. So we're still developing the experience, but every emotion is accepted. And so I want to experiment more with that for sure, like throwing funeral celebrations.
Jokes aside, the sort of Irish wake model might be quite a nice example of a kind of wave, because there's a sad part and there's a party part. So that might be a sort of model for that. And it's interesting. I think we have a specialism in what emotion we evoke in people. And there are definitely like poets I know that can really make people very sad. And it actually does serve a function, and I'm good at making people angry. That's my gift. So, you could have different specialists to do an emotional kind of, you could bring the joy and, we could make a cocktail. But it does look interesting. Where do people find out more about you then? I enjoyed what I saw of your stuff online. So where do people go?
Yeah. So I would recommend all of you to just check out our Instagram. That's probably the most active. And it's just VYVE Life. And everyone's invited to, it's different time zones, but we do a festival in your living room every Friday, and that's a free event. And essentially the vision for that is to create a tested method for annihilating loneliness in everyone who attends and giving people like a rush of joy on a consistent basis, like just a scientific method for creating like powerful joy and connection through Zoom.
Very nice. Very nice. I'm just adding you on the gram because I'm trying to get more into that one. Oh, there's all these social medias. I'm getting old, man. I don't want to be that grumpy old guy. So, okay. Final message about the body to finish us off, Jacques.
Yes. Let me reflect on that. I think that I just want to emphasize that I just want to emphasize that in times when our body contracts and our shoulders tension and we start to experience the fear of and a sympathetic nervous response, I think there are tools that we can use to put ourselves into an expansive state and really into a love state. And human connection, touch, eye contact, all those are means to overcome that fear, that contraction, and to benefit everyone in our surroundings by doing so. And this is what I do when I'm trying to attempt to throw a public party, is I'm feeling that response. And I need to game my body. I need to leverage different techniques to put myself into that infectious positivity state.
We don't have to be victims of our state, do we? And we can positively influence others. So,
yes.
Well, really, I'm with you on this. I'm with you.
And finally, the last thing I'll say is everyone has a body. Therefore, everyone has an intrinsic source of joy through their bodies. And that's my core belief with Vive. We want to give every human the ability to access joy through human connection and through their bodies.
Just reminded me to masturbate. Thank you. I know I had something else to do this evening.
There you go, man.
Jacques, this has been fun. Thanks for joining us.